The root of liberal is liber. Now, there are 3 words in Latin that have this root. The first one is the adjective. Liber, libera, liberum, and it means free, independent, unrestrained, exempt. Okay, it's free. The second 2 are nouns. And this is a little bit amusing to me because this is the word that liberal etymologically comes from. Isn't that a fun word? Etymologically. But the nouns play a part too. One of them really and one of them amusingly. The first noun is liber libri masculine, which is book. And there were actually medievalists who emphasized this aspect, actually made liberal come from book and emphasized the importance of books. So there's a real advantage to that. The third is a proper noun referring to an Italian deity associated with Bacchus. Well, considering what a lot of college students seem to fall into, I thought that was sort of apt. But anyway, okay, back to the adjective. Bacchus is the god of wine, drink. Okay, all right. Liber, librum. So that is... So it's free. Freeing, it's the ability of man to act as man, free from constraint, from having to do the servile thing. Okay. The arts, again, there's a few definitions. I'm going to emphasize 2 of them. And I'm not going to write it all out, but I will repeat it. Art. The ability to perform a complex operation with correctness, facility, and speed. I'm going to repeat that. Art, the ability to perform a complex operation with correctness, facility, and speed. The second definition is the right application of reason to things that can be made. You say, okay, one's doing the thing and one's thinking about doing the thing. So the arts, these definitions just focus on one angle or another of them. Okay. Now, if you go back to that chart, you'll notice that the fine arts, they have the term art in it. Well, that uses one of the 2 definitions. The complex operation with correctness, facility, and speed. A trained artist knows how to use the medium. But when we talk about the liberal arts, it's the application of reason to things that can be made and the practice of doing that so that it can be done correctly, easily, and with speed. The liberal arts, what are they? I think I missed something here. No, maybe not. And I had another quote I was going to give you. Yeah, I thought so. Okay, back to the handout. So a liberal education, we'll come back to the definitions in a minute. A liberal education enables a man to use his faculties in a way that makes him more human. He perfects his nature and therefore forms a better foundation for grace to build on. And as I said about that doorway, so philosophy, we know that it's the handmaid of theology. Well, the liberal arts are the servants of philosophy. Okay? Quoting Proverbs, wisdom hath built herself a house and hath hewn 7 pillars. What are the 7 pillars of wisdom's house? According to a famous medieval teacher at the time of Charlemagne, the 7 pillars are the 7 liberal arts. Okay, Brother Francis emphasizes the liberal arts as part of the timeless traditions handed down to us by thinkers of all time in his Introduction to Philosophia Perennis. Losing my chart here. And here I want you to go to the last page, please. It's the poorly copied page. This is in Brother's own handwriting. I apologize, we were having toner issues. It's a little hard to read. But I wanted to give you this little copy because I found Brother's first draft of the philosophy book, the Introduction to Philosophy, and this was his introduction to logic. And I want to read just this one paragraph, but rather than typing it out for you, I thought you might appreciate actually seeing Brother's handwriting. He wrote, because he was Lebanese, and when he writes English, he writes it like he's carving it. It's very specific, and you can see that in his writing. But you can also see how so much of what he wrote, there's very few corrections. For a draft, it's pretty much polished. He has a few outlines and a few corrections, but Brother had it all mapped out in his mind before he ever put it out. So you'll see that in his work. He'll miss a word here and there, and he'll fix things, but it's very much a polished product. And so he's introducing logic, and he's pointing out that it's one of the 7 liberal arts, which I'm going to come back to in a minute. Let's just pick up on the paragraph right below that chart. The 7 liberal arts, divided into the 3 disciplines of the trivium and the 4 disciplines of the quadrivium, form part of the traditional wisdom which come to us from the ages of faith, together with the scholastic philosophy we intend to present under the name of Philosophia Perennis. Liberal education is contrasted with specialized or professional education, which prepares a man for a craft or a profession, whereby a man may render a service to society and thus earn a living. So, without diminishing the nobility of service, from the Catholic point of view, there is implied in the attribute liberal another great value, namely the education of man as a free person, as a value in himself and for his own perfection and happiness. Okay, so set that aside. So let's go back now and talk about the liberal arts. Okay, the liberal arts are divided into 2 groups. Trivium, which means the way of 3 or the crossroads of 3 or the 3 roads. You can translate a couple different ways. Trivium, via, his way. And the quadrivium, the way of 4. And on the left, what are those 3 liberal arts? Grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The quadrivium is arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Okay, let's go over what those mean real quickly. Grammar, it's writing. But it's not just, when we think of grammar, for those of you who had a decent English education, grammar is parts of speech and how to parse and form sentences, and it's the nuts and bolts of this language. Grammar here, in the classical sense, was more how words are used. Expressions, how to produce effects, the different contexts in which words are used. So it's a much bigger, we would think of it more in the terms of studying literature. How are things written? What do they convey? And how do we convey that too? So grammar is writing. Logic, the art and science of correct reasoning. Okay? This is how to think. Notice these 3 are going to be the 3 things that identify a man as man. Writing, thinking, so rhetoric gives us speaking, okay? And it's not just, you say, well, why do I need to study rhetoric? I've been talking since I was 2, or whatever age you may have started speaking at. Well, this again isn't how to make sounds with your mouth. This is how to, convey ideas and convey them effectively. And again, there's many definitions of rhetoric. You'll often just see it as the art of persuasion. But Quintilian, I think it was, had an issue with that. Because if it's an art of persuasion, that means you might be persuaded to do something wrong, which means then it's not an art, it's not a virtue, okay? By the way, in themselves, the liberal arts are neutral tools. But they should still tend us toward the good. They need to be tools to the good. So Quintilian's definition was a good man speaking well. And I've talked about this before in some of my other talks. But so to write, to speak, to think well, that's the trivium. The quadrivium is a little interesting because you'll say, it's arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And when I tell you that they're all four mathematics, for some of you, that will give you a pause. What the quadrivium was is a study of order.